Welcome to the Own Your Best Life podcast. I'm May Emson, your host, leadership and mindset coach. Here, we talk all things spiritual, mindset, business, leadership, and wellness for the modern seeker who wants to align their life with purpose and inspiration. We'll cover career changes, stress management, meditation, energy, intuition, and more. Each episode holds spiritual and practical tools to help you live a life of your wildest dreams without getting burnt out along the way. Ready to live a life on your own terms? This is the Own Your Best Life podcast.
Welcome, friends, to episode number 62 of the Own Your Best Life podcast. Today, we are talking about food. Many of us have a strained relationship with food. We love it, we hate it, we blame it, and it's something that shows up every day for us in our lives. So how do we change our relationship with food for the better so that we don't feel like we are on an emotional roller coaster when we're trying to eat and take the steps towards the ideal version of our relationship with food, which is a high quality relationship, a nurturing relationship with food. And so when I started thinking about this topic, I began with this question of why does food feel like such an emotional roller coaster? Why do we judge ourselves for what we eat? Why do we judge ourselves for what we don't eat and how we eat? I noticed that we compare ourselves a lot. We compare ourselves to other people. And food is just another one of these methods that we use to separate ourselves. And I know that I've always loved food growing up, just very conceptually. I was exposed to lots of different kinds of Chinese foods growing up. I was also exposed to American and traditional American cooking because I grew up in the US as well. And I grew up with different cultures of eating because I had lots of friends that were from immigrant families as well. And I remember my grandmother specifically being an amazing cook. And I would tell my girls, my daughters, these stories about how she would try to make American foods and the way that it would turn out. For example, she would try to make these Rice Krispie treats, which is a very American treat and dessert, and she would make it in a wok. And why would she do this? Well, because she loved us and we loved Rice Krispie treats, and a wok is what she knew. And they wouldn't turn out as gooey or as buttery as the things that we were used to. She would actually add nuts to them. And she never used recipes, so her marshmallow ratio was a little bit off, and she ended up giving us what was more like crunchy granola bars than anything else. But we loved them. My brothers and I loved them. And the reason we loved them was because they were made with the idea and this intention of caring and of love. And when we think about our relationship with food, love has everything to do with it. I've had a love affair with food for as long as I can remember. I would stand next to my grandmother as she cooked. My mom had asked me to do that so that I could learn and see and observe what she was doing. And as I entered high school, it was this time when the whole food celebrity thing was starting to happen. Food Network was gaining popularity, and I loved all of that. And I was so interested in trying out all these new recipes, making all the foods that I love to eat. Some of the first things I made, of course, were things like baked ziti or croissants or chocolate chip cookies, banana bread, and all of these, of course, seemingly indulgent, decadent things that kids love. And I wanted to cook not just for myself, but for people around me as well. And when I started playing sports more competitively in high school, I remember a shift in the way I thought about food. It wasn't just this pure indulgence thing and it just tastes good and I want to make all the things that I want to eat. It was this shift because I remember overhearing a journalist saying it must have been something that she ate and it just suddenly clicked that food affects my performance. So the next evolution started happening, which was that food affects my body. And it wasn't just something that you ate for pleasure anymore or just to keep you from being hungry. It was also something that could positively affect the way that I showed up. And in that time period, I remember it was all about calories, all about salads. So I remember looking at nutrition labels for the first time ever. I remember specifically looking at, for example, a can of Pringles and eating the, 10 or 16 recommended serving size from the can instead of, whatever I thought was appropriate. And I remember going to the salad counter during lunch at school and picking out specifically salad with tuna and pita during the times that I played sports. So you can see how the shift started to happen. And I think as we are younger, we are treated with food, and we use treats for ourselves as a way to celebrate the relationship with people around us, with our family. We use it as a way to say, good job, well done. And we don't really use it as a way to think about performance. And I think if you were ever an athlete, or if you ever started making that connection to food as fuel or food as a way to enhance or better your performance, you can start to look at food in a very different way. You also eat a lot more. And that's something that I hear from folks who struggle sometimes with overeating because they've been used to eating a lot when they were playing sports, and a lot of times that happened in their formative years. So their habits are based around, it's okay to eat a lot of quantity because I need it for fuel and I'm going to, utilize all of this, and that's what everyone is doing around me. But what happens afterwards, or what happens when life starts to change? And I think that until we start to evaluate our relationship with food and the context of the way that we're living our lives, we let these old patterns and habits continue to run unquestioned until one day we can't fit in our pants anymore, or we feel some, other kind of symptoms in our bodies that create this shift of awareness that say, wait, this isn't working for me anymore. And I remember specifically when I went to college, right? We fast forward and you go to college from high school and the whole dreaded freshman 15, I can see now how the behaviors of eating socially and late at night were a lot of those culprits. And you could fit in through food. And I realized that you could belong through food. If someone wanted to show that they cared, you can eat with them to show that you care back. You can drink lots of alcohol or other kind of things to show that you can. Obviously for me, except I really couldn't handle it. And I don't process alcohol well. And you eat lots. If you wanted to prove that you aren't so obsessed with your body image, or maybe vice versa, you eat really little to show that you have a lot of restraint. So it was a time of fitting in as well as a time of indulgence. And for me, I know that when I decided I wasn't going to play sports in college, there wasn't really anything holding me back from eating everything that I wanted to, except the fear of gaining weight. And I would love to talk about the fear of gaining weight right now, because that is a big thing. The fear of gaining weight is huge for many of us. It is the main deciding factor for how we eat. And we start thinking all about the calories in versus the calories out. And there is something there around the practicality of just observing that when we eat a lot and we're not expending lots of energy, we will gain weight. Just very factual and very easy for us to understand. But what happens with this fear of gaining weight becomes this thought that I'm not going to look good, or I have those extra pounds and people are going to see, or what happens when I want to wear a bathing suit and I don't look as good as I want. There's so much packed in to the weight gain story. There's so much in there around body image, the way that we should look or shouldn't look. And I think a lot about how we shame ourselves about wanting to look a certain way, and we shame ourselves for looking a certain way. It's just this minefield. And so when I started reevaluating my approach with food and the way that I work with clients around food, I really wanted to encourage this gentle observation, this understanding of food that was more about the education of ourselves around how we think about food, how we feel around it. Not necessarily you have to change all these habits and do all these things, but a place where you create a space for awareness. And maybe, just maybe, you start to think about what it feels like to eat a certain way or what it doesn't feel like to eat a certain way. And everyone's got a different place to start with this. And one of the main places that I started with was around the quality of the food that I was eating. I remember that when I started working in the corporate world, I realized I couldn't handle caffeine, for example, the way that other people seemingly could. Even if it was 0 calories, even if it was a diet drink, it still had things in it, namely caffeine, that created this feeling in my body that I didn't love. It was this feeling of my heart racing suddenly, and I would have all these headaches. And while catered lunches of big sandwiches and big cookies and soft drinks seemed like such a luxury at that time, I realized that I didn't feel good after eating them. I felt really lethargic. I felt bloated. My heart would start racing. My head would start hurting. And that didn't sound so good and didn't feel so good. So you can start to imagine that I felt these ways after I ate certain things. So I made this connection between, okay, I don't process caffeine well. This is what happens when I have caffeine. This is what happens when I eat large amounts of food in the middle of the day. So I started thinking more about the less tangible, the intangible qualities of food. I began thinking about, where did food come from? How was it grown? What were the ingredients? How did it feel after I ate food? And similar to the relationships we have with people, I began to see that what I did and how I felt was also a projection. This is huge. A projection of the way that I thought about myself. So when I began to see myself as this really living and breathing and changing organism that has different needs and responsibilities and context in my life at different points in time, that I'm in partnership with food, I began to then see food more as this very symbiotic relationship instead of a parasitic one or something that I just controlled. And it wasn't as rigid as what I think many of us get subscribed to. Like, we just have to do a certain thing, we have to eat a certain way, and if anything ever changes, it's terrible, it's bad. And so the question then became, how do I have a good relationship with food? Not how do I stay at this one certain way, but how do I feel healthy around food? How do I know when I'm feeling healthy around food? And it ultimately led to me having a better understanding and relationship with myself. And I realized when I began doing elimination diets or food resets that I would feel better afterwards. I suffered from hives, and I have not necessarily food allergies per se, but I feel certain things and they create symptoms in my bodies that are daily. And so hives were one of them that happened after this, long trip that we went on where I indulged a lot. It was a 7-week trip to Europe. We drank, we ate all the foods, and I just started getting hives one day in the middle of the trip, and it was a daily thing for months. And it wasn't until I tried an elimination program where I eliminated certain foods for 21 days. And that program, if you're interested, is the Clean program by Alejandro Younger. And it worked wonders for me. And I would do it every 6 months. As a result, after that, it felt so much better. And I remember being so confused. Why do I have to do this again? Why couldn't I just, eat this way for 21 days once and everything's fine forever. But that mentality is based on two things. One is that we are not ever changing. And then the second thing is that we need fixing, that I fixed this problem with this diet for those 21 days and now everything should be solved. But the way we eat and how we eat and what we eat was never about solving a problem. It was never really even a problem. And so what is it instead? It is just actually just showing us the way home to loving ourselves more. It is a way for us to see how we are relating to things. When we hate on food, when we love on food, there's something else behind it. It's not just like the physical nutrients that we are hating on or loving on. There's a concept behind it. The concept is I connect with someone through this, or we finally feel a certain way through it. And just like any of our other patterns in our life, until we understand ourselves fully, it's really hard for us to stop doing the things that don't serve us so well. And we then go back to unhealthy eating habits. We start being mean to ourselves and we judge ourselves and we judge other people. We don't take action on simple things that we know would help us. We self-sabotage without even realizing, or we self-sabotage realizing. We avoid, we hide, and when we decide that we actually want to work with something, it can be scary. And so does this mean that we have to dig into how we really feel? And I do think that if we're not ready to ask ourselves some of these questions about how we think about ourselves, we won't change anything in the outer world. We will continuously stay stuck in the status quo of wherever we are, however we're feeling, and the thought patterns that we continue to run. Our outer world is entirely a reflection of the way that we believe that life gets to work for us. So if we believe that this is something that we can handle, manage, think through, and let it not be a big deal, and let it just be something that we understand ourselves better, make a shift and see how it feels, then that's what it will be. But if we make food to be this heavy, really scary thing where I don't want to look at it, I'm not going to change anything because I don't like this idea that there could be something scary around it, then it feels really heavy and scary. So what do? Are you going to give up because you think it's too hard? No, you are not. We say to ourselves, well, let's just try eating in a way that feels better and healthier for my soul and see what comes up in the process. Let's just try eating what I want and indulge and see what comes up in the process. We don't try to change ourselves by forcing these things. We change ourselves by observing how we react, what we think. Why do we think we're even interested in helping us have a better relationship with food? Is it because you don't love the way you feel? Is it because you sit in a certain amount of shame after you eat certain things? Is it because you feel that you are so rigid around what you're eating that you want more food freedom? And so we can change ourselves by being willing to change how we react and what we're thinking. We change ourselves by actually not saying, that was terrible, don't ever think that way again, but instead by upgrading and shifting what we're thinking and how we react so that we lift ourselves into healthier ways of living. And so one of the biggest things that eating resets or elimination programs taught me was that I ate to feel a certain way. Boredom, for example, was a huge one. If I'm bored, I can just eat something delicious and interesting and indulgent. If I can't figure something out, well, let's eat something because that's something I can do and that tastes good, and let's just have a good feeling in another way instead of getting my good feeling from completing a task. Or I'm feeling so loving and caring. Well, let's indulge because we want to celebrate. And that same thing happened with connection. Let's connect with people. Let's eat things together. Or I've been depriving myself of food and I'm starving. So let's just binge on the thing that I wasn't eating or eat large, vast quantities of food. I just started seeing that eating wasn't something I did when I was already feeling whole and complete. Eating was something I did because I didn't feel whole and complete, and I focused on it as a way to bridge this gap, fill the void, complete an emotional cycle. So this feeling of fullness that we give ourselves from food is not just a physical fullness. It's a physical fullness that represents an emotional fullness, a mental fullness, a spiritual fullness that we are looking to have. And the question then became, well, what if I just didn't complete that cycle? What if I just felt bored and I didn't indulge? What if I just felt like I couldn't figure something out, but I didn't eat to fill that void? What if I felt angry, resentful, deprived, frustrated, and didn't try to fix that part of me through food? And when I work with clients around thinking and shifting and living better, eating is one of those parts. And it's not eating for eating's sake. It's eating because it's related to body image. It's eating because I want to have a healthier relationship with myself and the way I think about my body, the way I think about my potential, the way I think about the way that life gets to show up for me. I mean, the quality of the life that I get to lead. It's very gentle. And that is a huge shift for a lot of us, because when you achieve a lot, sometimes you come to it from a place of fear or a place of lack or a place of telling yourself that you got to get it together because this is terrible. And the challenge then becomes that we tell ourselves that we're terrible, and then we believe it, and then we just give up and we decide, well, why bother? It doesn't really matter. And when we don't think that our actions matter, when we don't think our behaviors matter, we will stay exactly where we are, or we will slide further back into thoughts and habits that are really stressful or don't serve us. And if we're looking for a lot more freedom in our lives, we actually have to glide out of there with a sense of ease that you're okay. Fundamentally. And if you want to change how you eat, good, fine, great. But if you don't want to change how you eat, that's okay too. And the weird paradox is, as soon as you let go of this need for you to have to fix anything, or that your body isn't right the way it is, you actually come to wanting to have a healthier relationship with yourself and eating better just more naturally. It just becomes this extension of, oh, let me try this because I've notice that certain things don't leave me feeling so energized. And when I eat certain other things, maybe it does. Or I love that I do get to connect in this certain way, but I don't do this all the time because it just doesn't feel good if I eat like this 24/7. So it becomes this really gentle way of bridging this gap again and again, and having a conversation with food where when you do go into the habits that don't serve you, and maybe you fall off the wagon and you were doing great in your mind for so long, you just realize you just start again. Not a big deal. Let's just keep going. And that is what healthy eating resets taught me. It gave me the courage to try something new. And in each period that I would reset the way I ate, it was a shift. It was a pattern interrupt. And that's what we're looking to do. Interrupt your patterns. I would gain a little bit more clarity about the ways that I was relating to food, because I would interrupt the pattern and I would say, I don't just eat because I'm bored. Wow, interesting thought there. Wonder why that's happening. Or, wait, if I don't eat those things, I feel a certain way. Or if I do eat these things, I feel a certain way. And so I would gain just a little bit more emotional mastery about myself. And the result was that I would just create these slight shifts in eating behaviors for the better. And I would eat, for example, less processed foods than I might have originally. Or I would eat more plant-based foods. I would drink more water. I would learn how to make food with love instead of to love. I would slow down my eating. I would be more thoughtful about food, but not emotionally fixated. And you can start to see that kind of shift over time adds up. And I didn't just stop eating everything that wasn't good for me, or, oh, it has to fit a certain nutritional profile and therefore I wouldn't eat it. No, what it meant was I was just more aware of why I was eating, how it would feel in my body as a result. It's not about any kind of perfection state or just maintaining a certain thing. I can still make the choices for myself about what and how I want to eat, but that also means I know how to come back a bit quicker from the places when we begin to spiral. And if we can make food to not mean everything, and this is where I think that we get stuck on it. If we can make food to just not mean everything, then it won't mean everything. And one of the easiest ways to do that is when you go through these resets, when you stop and break the pattern and you change what you eat for a period of time. When I'm doing some kind of program like, I don't know, a fast mimicking diet or an elimination program, for example, that structure gives me some kind of freedom. It creates less decision fatigue because instead of thinking all day long about what I'm eating next or what am I planning to eat after that, and there's all this fixation around the food, I know instead what the plan is, and there are fewer decisions to make. Then food doesn't become everything. Then I focus on, oh, what's the activity that I'm going to do? Or let me be present in this moment, not thinking about food constantly or the next thing that I'm going to have. I can just use that energy for other things that may be where I want to spend time on, or maybe it's just in really enjoying the quality of my life, not because I'm eating a certain thing, but just because life feels good. And all of that means that we're not going to just eat a certain thing to feel a certain way anymore. I eat because it helps me learn what it feels like to eat more naturally. And when I think about nature and food, that brings me back to a centered point of groundedness of in nature, we don't eat constantly every single moment in these vast quantities. We eat things that are a little more whole. We do eat a lot at some points, and there are points where we eat a lot less, and we eat with a purpose as well. So I just start to realize that when you look at nature, you do not see as many signs of what we think of when we think of imbalanced bodies. So I would encourage you to think about what it feels like if you were just this natural person, a person that is in tune with nature, not a person that is in tune with this modern world and tied into all its things, but what would it look like and feel like if you were this person that got to move in nature, be with nature, ate from nature, and had a natural body and natural image of yourself as a person in a very natural world. We don't have mirrors in nature. And how much time do we spend on the scale or in front of a mirror looking at ourselves and our bodies? When we are in nature and we don't have mirrors, we're focused much more on just the way our body is feeling through this more felt sense or through an internal sense. We also focus on the functional use of our body, and we give it the respect it deserves, which is that wow, right? We birth things, we create things, we use our legs, we move our arms, we breathe, we swim. It's just amazing when you start to think about all the beautiful ways that we actually can show up for the world, and that our bodies are not just to be looked at and fit in clothes a certain way. And the more we tie ourselves into this really modern world where it's focused on the mirror, the weight, the image, the less we are connected to this natural part of ourselves that appreciates different body shapes and sizes, appreciates the way that our bones are structured differently, appreciates the way that our hips might be set differently, or our muscles look different. And that's a beautiful thing. And I think that we so often forget that we're not supposed to be the same. We're not all supposed to fit into the same things, look the same way, and show up. And I think that the more that we can embrace the beauty of our uniqueness and our natural selves, and we do that by coming back to ourselves, by interrupting our patterns and saying, wait, let me break the way that I've been thinking of food and the way that I've been eating, and let me try to do it from a different place, a place of wholeness. We're allowing ourselves to kind of reset back into this energy center of nature, back into the center of alignment, back into the center of loving what is, which is our bodies, the way that we're living and breathing, and what we get to eat to help ourselves live in a certain way. And then it becomes an easy thing to think of, right? Food then becomes easy. It doesn't become associated with all the images and the stories and projections that we have in our lives about, oh, I'm going to look a certain way, I'm going to age a certain way, oh, I can't be like this, I can't look like this, I can't feel like this. None of those things. We're shifting more into this place of nature, of wholeness. And that is a huge part, I think, of changing our relationship for the better. And so I wanted to talk to you also about healthy eating resets, because people ask me about them. They say, what do you like to do, May? Or do you feel that you don't gain the weight afterwards? All of those kinds of things. So I usually do them about once every 4 to 6 months. I feel that for me, it helps me come back to what my natural state actually looks like, devoid of all of that external messaging and the cues about body image or enoughness or let's have indulgence and fun in these certain ways. Because I've decided ahead of time in my more sane state of mind that this would be a good idea at this point in time. I don't try to do it in a fit of, oh my goodness, I need to look a certain way for a certain thing. I try to say, okay, I haven't done one in this period in several months. I will schedule one at this point. And so the last one I did was in, I think, January and a little bit into February. So plus 4 to 6 months, and now we're in June. So I'm going to do one at the end of June so that I have not necessarily like I'm not fixing a problem, but it's a way for me to come back to my internal self. And it has helped me. And I've noticed, and I mentioned it before, it's helped me deal with a variety of these physical symptoms like hives or bloating. And it also helps with things like mental clarity and emotional mastery of not feeling so tied into food that it drives all these behaviors and these emotions. And it lets me kind of check and balance. It's kind of like a tune-up or a clean-up of my relationship with food. You know, when we think about spending time with loved ones and having high-quality relationships, it comes from having some focus on it and spending quality time there. For me, these healthy resets are spending quality time with eating and myself and the way that I'm showing up for my body. So if you want to participate in one, you can find lots of different programs out there that you can do. But you can also do it on your own really easily. There are a few simple and easy ideas for healthy eating resets, and I'll share a few of them. So one of them starts with just picking a predetermined number of days. So for many people, they don't want to think of this thing as something they do forever. But if you're like, hey, I want to do this forever, I want to make a big shift, go ahead. But for others, it helps to pick a certain number of days. For example, I'm going to do one that's 5 days long, but others might want to do one that's 21 days long. I've done ones that are 30 days long. And just pick something that you think is going to work for you and your schedule. It doesn't have to be, again, a big deal. And it's just you trying something out. Then the second thing you do is you pick how you'll eat. Again, this is a whole thing about ahead of time deciding what is going to be the most helpful for you. So in the moment, making those choices back and forth is much harder to do, because in the moment you're going to say, I'm used to doing things this way. I'll do it the way that I'm used to. And this is running our old habits and patterns. So maybe you're bored and then you go, eat something because you're bored. Or maybe you are feeling lonely, so you just fixate on food and how you're going to plan this like giant meal for yourself and then eat like the large vast quantity, and it doesn't really solve any problems of being alone, and then now you just feel really full. So think ahead of time about how it is you want to feel, why you're doing this, what things you might want to try, and ways you want to show up in the ways that you want to eat, and then follow that plan and pick it out ahead of time. So, for example, common ones are eating more plants or eating only plants. That's just an example. You would, for example, if you're eating more plants, you would reduce the amount of meat that you're eating, or maybe you reduce some of the dairy products that you're eating. If you decide I want to be a vegetarian or a vegan, you can try that and eliminate the things that are not vegetarian or not vegan. Another option is along the lines of elimination programs, where you eliminate common food, I would say, not necessarily always allergens, but things that cause inflammation in our body, or things that we have studied and known many people have some kind of reaction to. So, for example, gluten, added sugar, alcohol, caffeine, highly processed foods that have, lots and lots of ingredients in them. So that's another way ahead of time to say, okay, I will not eat gluten, or I won't eat added sugar, or I'm going to cut out alcohol this week. And then there are also ways to add. So it's not just about not eating, right? That's the elimination program. But a lot of it is about adding good habits, such as drinking more water, or drinking the amount of water that our bodies need, or just moving our bodies lightly in ways that feel good. So the third thing that you want to think about as I talk about moving our bodies is just plan activities for yourself during that time that nourish you. So taking some walks, doing some yoga, reading, or activities that focus on your health in all these other ways can be really supportive and help create this feeling of, hey, I'm really reconnecting with my body. I am creating this sense of wholeness and reminding myself of why I'm doing this in the first place. So it should be a really self-loving time instead of a time where I'm punishing myself and this should feel terrible, versus like, this might feel challenging because it's different than the way I used to do it, but let me approach it from this place of gentle curiosity, observation, and love. A place of, let's see what it feels like to kind of come from a place of, let's return to our natural states. So I will be completing one at the end of June, from June 21st to 25th. It'll be a 5-day healthy eating reset as we enter into the second half of the year. So if you do want to join me, I will be sharing what I'm doing, how I'm doing it. I'll be guiding you through ways to do it for yourself in whatever ways that work for you, whether it's just switching to more whole foods, or drinking more water, or perhaps you want to move your body in different ways. You can go to www.mayamson.com/reset and sign up. It's free. We can do it together, and we'll do a few different resources, calls, pre, post, during, to help us do it together as a community and keep our minds centered on the healthier aspects of why we want to do this healthy eating reset. So more importantly, and most importantly, I want this to be, if you do consider doing this for yourself, a time for you to learn about and experience what it feels like to eat from a place of wholeness rather than lack. And many times when we enter into these resets, we think all about the lack. And instead, I want to shift that conversation and the relationship so it's coming from a place of wholeness, coming from a place of, oh my goodness, life gets to be even better. I get to feel even better. I get to have a more expansive relationship with food. I get to have more abundance. I get to have more joy. Like, all of these things are interconnected. So when we can enhance the way that we relate to our bodies, it enhances the way that we relate to others. It enhances the way that we believe life gets to work for us, and enhances the way that we end up showing up in the world. So how can we change our relationship with food is an ongoing question and an ongoing process. And what it can lead to is a really stress-free way of eating, a shame-free way of eating, a judgment-free way of eating. And I'm asking you to imagine what it would feel like to eat without guilt, shame, and feel good in your body and soul and be doing yourself good in the process. And I'm telling you it's possible, and you can experience it for yourself. So let me know what resonates with you. If you want to do this, you can go to www.mayamson.com/reset. We can join in and do it together. Again, I'm doing it from June 21st to 25th. So jump on ahead of time, because you can hop onto some of the calls or watch the replays of it, and we will do this together. And if you're interested in this, you will love the leadership group coaching that I do. It's called the Spiritual Achiever Leadership Coaching Program. It is a group experience. Each month we cover different topics such as this. We bring the best of our knowledge and our experience and bring it into the practical life, so it moves from the knowing to the doing. And we're finishing up this month's topics on the aligned action sequence, and we are going to be moving into, in July, mind-body practices, which is why this reset is also so timely. As we enter into the summer months, we're really getting into that part of, I would call it like harmony, this way of living and integrating and loving life and creating even more joy from our lives, and coming into that sense of season and period in our lives also is a helpful way to think about how do we relate to our body and our experiences, and how does our mind and our body connect. So we'll be doing lots of different practices to help us learn about mind-body connection. We will dive into it in these practical ways for ourselves and break through some of the limits that we've set for ourselves by connecting to the somatic, which is the body, and connecting also to the mind, and realizing how much potential information and wisdom and creativity we can unleash when we start to make that mind-body connection. So if you love that topic, you can go to www.mayamson.com/contact and reach out to learn more and see if it's something that you want to participate in. It is a 12-month program, and we get to go through all of these things together as a group. We have training each month, and then we also do virtual retreats, and there is a live retreat coming up together as well if you would like to participate. So all fun things. Super excited for this year to come. And I know that as we're moving out of this COVID pandemic period, we are wanting to create these new ways of living because our lives have shifted so much. So I encourage you to think about food, our relationship with our bodies, as we reemerge and reconnect from a more internal space, which I think is entirely beautiful and a great place to be, and into this external place, and do it from a healthy, lifelong way of living. All right. I love you all. Have an amazing week, and I will talk to you next time.
Thanks so much for joining us this week on Own Your Best Life. Make sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts so that you'll never miss a show. And while you're at it, can you please rate and review on iTunes? I would so appreciate it. Share it with a friend, take a screenshot of it, and tag @MayEmson. This helps continue to get the word out. For more show notes and resources, check out www.mayemson.com. You'll have all the links to everything you heard here today. Thanks so much for listening. It's time to own your best life.